Welcome back to PCW, where today we are reviewing WWE Smackdown. Smackdown this week set a lot of things in motion, and we saw some faces we haven't seen for a while. But there was at least one massive omission that we absolutely cannot ignore. I'm PCW's Tom Collihew. Please remember to click like, subscribe if you haven't, and let's get straight into the review. Smackdown this week featured a very subtle Roman Reigns, who essentially sat at the back and provided a hell of a lot of gaslighting. His relationship with Jey Uso came into serious question here because he has been incredibly protective of his cousin. It feels like an abusive partner. That's all I'm going to say on that one, and to be honest, it's a very well told story. Our opening match was the one that I expected to be the main event, and it lasted essentially the first third of the show, that being the Usos taking on the Street Profits. This was extremely well built in a very short amount of time. They had the week to promote it, of course, as they did last week with the Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way. But in addition to that, they gave us the Usos cutting a promo on the Street Profits. And it's been about a year since we were welcomed to the Uso Penitentiary, so this was very welcome indeed. Street Profits, for their part, were no slouches either, building for a long time to a hot tag to Angelo Dawkins. Though there were certain moments that seemed to be a lack of chemistry, in general, the action was very high tempo and very smooth. Small moments like Montez Ford missing Jey Uso after leaping over the top of the turnbuckle can be forgiven on the basis that he leapt over the top of the goddamn turnbuckle. The finish I also found moderately surprising. Not that it was the Usos that won, that seemed fairly obvious to me, but that it was clean. I expected some sort of interference either from Roman or someone else to try and ensure that the Street Profits did not take a clean loss. However, they did, and honestly I think that was a right move. The Usos will have an opportunity against the winner of the main event for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, Rey and Dominic Mysterio, or Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. They built the tag division extremely well this week. In our first bit of build towards that main event, we had Ziggler and Roode backstage talking to Megan Morant. It was a very simple Ziggler and Roode promo, one we've seen 1,000 times, but at least they are actually pushing towards that main event and hyping it up properly. Natalya and Tamina defeated the Riott Squad in about 6 minutes, but nobody was made to look like a slouch in this one either. Liv Morgan hitting Natalya with her finisher on the outside, too late to stop Tamina hitting the splash and pinning Ruby Riott, who sold extremely well for this. The Riott Squad did try a lot of new things and new tag team offense early on in the match. I don't feel it quite worked as they were trying to make it work, but I feel a bit more time and practice might actually help them in that regard as well. Mostly it was just nice to see the Riott Squad again. It's been a while. For our second hour draw segment, we had Bianca Belair versus Carmella, a match they've tried to get on pay-per-view a number of times, but it hasn't quite worked out as intended. Now, when it comes to this match, it seemed like it was supposed to be a showcase for Bianca Belair leading into her rematch with Bayley, but she just didn't seem to quite be able to deliver in the same way, either due to the aforementioned lack of chemistry or just a lack of practice, as aforementioned in the other match that we've had so far. She wasn't able to press Carmella as well as she had hoped. She wasn't able to physically dominate, and there were a couple of minor botches here. So what should have been a showcase still ended up being a dominant, clean win, but Bianca Belair wasn't able to really show what she can do as well as she would like. In a match-up to the interview that she did with Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, Megan Morant interviewed Rey and Dominic Mysterio. Again, very simple build, a very clever way of doing it, but a very standard way of doing it, building to a tag team championship match by interviewing both teams backstage periodically over the course of the night. Seth Rollins made his entrance looking like a tropical bird sanctuary, wasn't ready for that one, and came down to the ring to cut a promo on Cesaro. Cesaro was not there this week, which shows how far down the pecking order he's actually gone since losing to Roman Reigns clean at WrestleMania Backlash. The promo was quite simple, Seth Rollins, but did contain a moment when Pat McAfee really creeped the hell out of me. Seth Rollins, it was his birthday yesterday, started singing happy birthday to himself. Pat McAfee slowly and quietly joined in, and it scared me a little, I can't lie. In a non-title match, Kevin Owens absolutely destroyed Apollo Crews in about 2 minutes at an exceptional pace. It looked like they ran out of time on this one and were just trying to desperately squeeze it in by the end here. After about 2 minutes, it ended up in a DQ finish because Commander Aziz, seeing the writing on the wall, ran around the ring to get close enough and just whacked Kevin Owens in the throat. Kevin Owens would sell this for a while afterwards, take the DQ win, and essentially talk to Adam Pearce backstage in between choking to say, I want the rematch next week for the title with Commander Aziz not allowed at ringside. This very much suggests to me that Apollo Crews will be having a new person joining his stable. Or it'll just be Sami Zayn again. Jey Uso was presented by Paul Heyman to Roman Reigns, sat down next to his cousin and talked about his relationship with Roman and how now suddenly he's got his eyes on someone else and some different championships. Has he taken his eyes off Roman? Roman's hurt. This was exceptionally well done. Really, really shone a light on the dynamic between these two, the subservience of Jey Uso. He does look like an abused partner at this point, who's finally seen another option, a way out. And Roman's just trying to remind him, no mate, you've got Stockholm Syndrome, you ain't going nowhere. Rick Buggs introduced Shinsuke Nakamura, and I'm so glad they're going to be doing this every single week. This week we had a break from Nakamura versus Corbin, even though the feud is very much still Nakamura versus Corbin. Instead we had Nakamura versus Chad Gable with Otis in his corner. And as you might expect, Nakamura and Chad Gable were able to create a little bit of magic. Unfortunately the match didn't last very long, only about 4 minutes. Corbin came down to steal the crown just as Nakamura hit the Kinshasa to pick up the win. Buggs then attacked Corbin to get the crown back for Nakamura. Looks like Corbin also may need some backup. Maybe Shorty G will help him. Rey Mysterio was attacked backstage by an unnamed assailant. Could have been Ziggler and Rude as it was at the pay-per-view, or it could have been the Usos. Keep an eye on this one. Dominic Mysterio decided he was going to defend the championships on his own, which is very, very dumb. So he gets a bit of dumb babyface syndrome. But after a distraction from a rival of Rey Mysterio, Dominic did get a roll-up and actually successfully defend those championships. Immediately afterwards, and you can tell they were running out of time here, the Usos came down to the ring. Jey was the story here, staring longingly at the championships and then looking at Jimmy nervously. A very good story being told here. SmackDown this week put on a good show, with the tag division in particular looking much stronger at the end of this. We now have a direction for the Intercontinental Championship, and even though the match itself wasn't fantastic, we saw some forward motion in the Women's Championship feud because they actually broke up some of the recurring matches to give us a little bit of a shake-up there. That said, I cannot forgive the lack of Aleister Black or Big E. They closed the show last week with their angle, and this week they did not feature at all. That is simply not acceptable. Going forwards, I expect we'll see Cesaro back. He also was missing here. The storytelling is good, but for some reason they keep forgetting key players when they need to. Everything around Roman Reigns continues to deliver, but there was a little bit of an overall sloppiness this week in both the timekeeping and the writing. Let me know what you thought of SmackDown down in the comments. I've been Tom Collihew for PCW, and I will see you next time.